Tom, I'd like to start with something I'd not like to start with, and that's Pierre Poilievre, who's in the news today. And I want to make sure I understand this, because we've been told there would be more of these anti-vaccine rallies in Ottawa. Is he come out and supporting this today? What did I not catch here?
You're catching Pierre Poilievre in full flight, and you would have thought that now that he's managed to corner the market on the wingnut category, he would have left well enough alone. But he's really intent on proving to Canadians that he cannot be Prime Minister of Canada, because he's once again off his perch talking about, well, this is all about protesting the government's unfair vaccine mandates, which are pretty well all over by now. And, people are allowed to protest for their freedom. Are you going to be meeting with these truckers if they come to Parliament Hill again on Canada Day? Well, we haven't said that yet, but we really want to make sure people understand that Pierre Poilievre supports this type of action. So this is his campaign. This is what they've decided to do. It seems that it might be just enough for him to defeat the other candidates like Jean Charest, Patrick Brown, and Leslie Lewis, but will it actually let him become the Prime Minister of the country and let the Conservatives win enough seats to do that? I think the answer is a resounding no, because he's marginalizing himself every time he takes this sort of step. He could have just left it where it was. He'd gotten all of that vote to himself so far, but he's decided that he wanted to go for the brass ring, and I think that this might be, the straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of the public's reaction to this guy.
Okay, I don't understand something here strategically, right? You're a politician. Right. You know that the polls tell you only a fraction of Canadians support the anti-vaxxers or the freedom rallies. Why would you go out there knowing that most of the country, who eventually will elect you, maybe not within the Conservative Party, you're right, why would you take that side? It makes no sense strategically.
Well, you're completely right. I couldn't agree with you more that this particular one makes no sense. Because for him to have gone with a big Hoover vacuum cleaner and scooped up all of that, fringe vote, fine. I mean, that's politics. He wants them all to buy membership cards in the Conservative Party and come out and vote for him. But there's going to be a day of reckoning for this, as you correctly say, Aaron. The average Canadian is going to look at this guy next time around and say, oh, so you've had a couple of years to calm down and you're going to make us believe you're no longer the guy who was going to fire the governor of the Bank of Canada and who said he liked the truckers who shut down Ottawa and brought them Tim Hortons donuts to support them? Sorry, buddy, you're not a responsible adult. You can't be given the keys to this place.
Well, and he's also spoken an awful lot about how he wants to unite not just the party but Canadians, and yet this is one of the most divisive issues. I heard the
here, Natasha, very, very good point.
I heard the Ottawa Chief of Police talking about this today. So the convoy organizers, they're planning to arrive on Canada Day and stay for the rest of the summer. And the Chief of Police of Ottawa was saying,
that'll work out well.
I know. Well, he was saying it's not going to happen. They're not going to allow it to happen. Do you think they will have their act together and be prepared this time around, Tom?
Well, what happened in the city of Ottawa is an object lesson for everyone, because sometimes people make their way to the top through all sorts of different routes and for all sorts of different reasons. And in the middle of this crisis, which no city in Canada, to be fair, had ever seen before, it turned out that their police chief was absolutely incapable of doing anything. He was frozen in fear, had no plan, had no clue. So he was fired by the city right in the middle of this thing. And then they brought in somebody else who knew what he was doing, and he brought in the Ontario Provincial Police, the Sûreté du Québec was there, all the top people, the RCMP and CSIS and so forth, and they just got rid of them using the Emergencies Act, which, by the way, I still agree with. So I think that Mr. Poilievre is playing with fire again, because if anything happens on Canada Day. Now, apparently they've moved the main site a little bit away from Parliament Hill because of the construction work, but it'll still be a massive thing. When you go to these things in Ottawa on Canada Day, we're talking, if you get a nice day,
it's amazing.
A little bit less sure also. But if you do get a nice day, you're talking hundreds of thousands of people. Yeah. They're huge events. Mm-hmm. So if somebody thought they were, just imagine, forget about all the politics of it for 2 seconds, just the safety issue of trying to let anybody trundle in with a truck in the middle of that. That's crazy. So they'll do exactly what the police are equipped to do. They'll pop their tires if they have to. They'll have every tow truck in the region ready to pull them out of there. But again, getting back to the politics of this, I think that Pierre Poilievre has been drinking his own bathwater. He just believes that he's got the keys to the Prime Minister's residence in the next election. And I think he's just proving by stuff like this that he's totally marginal and couldn't be trusted.
So, Tom, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier in the afternoon. So now officially the new Canadian Party of Quebec, it's all well and good. We talked to Colin Standish. So I had Brent Tyler on earlier on because I didn't understand. You have the Liberal Party saying that if they were in power, if they somehow managed to get elected, they're not ready to repeal Bill 96. They want to tweak some articles in the bill. Yet the other parties say they want to repeal the bill entirely. So what's the difference here?
Well, the difference essentially is if you read Bill 96, and a lot of people have actually read it, there are some incredibly offensive parts of it, like, for example, the ability for searches and seizures, which go completely search and seizure provisions that go completely against the Charter of Rights, but they've used the notwithstanding clause. So one of the first things that Anglade said she'd get rid of is the notwithstanding clause, used as a peremptory measure in this bill. She's also saying that she would go after some of the other provisions that she finds offensive, like search and seizure. But would she get rid of some of the more technical stuff in there? Probably not. I don't think it's all offensive. But if you look at things like, for example, saying that you're going to lose the equality of English and French before the courts, or that you're going to try to override the constitutional guarantee for the English-speaking community to control and manage its school boards, of course, those are the types of things that Anglade would knock down. What Brent Tyler and these fringe parties are trying to do is use a holus bolus argument to say, aha, you see, the Liberals can't be trusted. They're not going to take down Bill 96, but we will. But this just in, neither Mr. Standish nor Mr. Holness has any chance whatsoever of, forget about forming a government, they're not going to win a single seat. So they can huff and puff and pretend that they're going to blow the house down. And look at Brent Tyler's track record on this stuff. It's not really very good. So if these are the people that are leading this new movement in the English-speaking community, I would just ask everybody to breathe through the nose, to think about this for 2 seconds, and look at the piece that I just penned, for example, in the Gazette. It's already online for today, but it'll be in the paper version tomorrow. And at some point, threatening to harm yourself, as one observer put it today in the Gazette, in fact, cutting off your nose to spite your face, it doesn't get you anywhere. So people are free to vote for these fringe parties if they want, but they're not going to be accomplishing any of the things that they say that they're going to do. One person said to me, it's to teach the Liberals a lesson. Oh, that's really smart. So you'd wind up with a new session for 4 years of the National Assembly with nobody representing the English-speaking community of Quebec, because, as I say, none of these people even have a chance. So if they actually pull off what they're hoping to do, they might just let the CAQ work its way up the middle in some of these ridings. I don't think that that's what any of them intend, but that could be very well the result.
But let me ask a naive question then, perhaps, because I know others have brought this up. What's the difference if the CAQ has 75 seats or 85 seats? You have a majority, it's a majority. What's the difference if they have even more seats?
Well, I think that you have to go back to that great paper that was penned by people who have 100 years' experience in the National Assembly, who are all sterling members of the English-speaking community of Quebec. People of the likes of Cliff Lincoln and Jeff Kelly and Russ Williams and Russ Copeman and Lawrence Bergman, who said, think about this for 1 second. Isolation from the entire Quebec community and no English-speaking community representation in the National Assembly is a recipe for disaster. We're going to be completely cut off, and right now we might not like the way things have gone, but we've at least had, on most issues, somebody with the ability to articulate some of the concerns of the community. And I think that it shouldn't be lost on anyone that Dominic Anglade, of course, is being attacked viciously by nationalist commentators and reporters right now for having attended that rally against Bill 96. So on the one hand, the Liberal leader attends a rally against Bill 96, speaks articulately about what's wrong with all of those provisions that I just mentioned in Bill 96, and now she's being attacked on the other side by these wannabe politicians, who have never gotten elected to anything, but decide that they're going to channel the anger of the community. And I think that might actually, instead of being a hindrance or a problem, it might be a blessing in disguise for Dominic Anglade, because unlike the other two, she's actually going to be in the debates in this campaign. Mm-hmm. And when she's up there on the stage, she gets to say, because Legault will attack her for her position against Bill 96's provisions that I just talked about. He's going to attack her for being too close to the English community. He's going to call it not Le Parti Libéral, but Le Parti Libéral, to try to put a little bit of accent on that. And she gets to look at him and say, and there are even some elements in the English-speaking community who feel that I didn't go far enough in defending them. But I've got a nuanced position because I'm here to bring people together, not to divide them like you, Mr. Legault. So she's going to situate herself between Legault's radical attempts to divide Quebecers on language, on religion, and these fringe groups who absolutely have no chance but are just going to be there hectoring. She's going to stand up like the stateswoman she is. Nobody can talk to her about rights. Her father was jailed by the Duvalier regime in Haiti. She has fought for rights all her life. She knows what this is about. She quit the CAQ because Legault was backing the soccer federation that kicked out a Sikh boy for his head covering. And she said, my parents would never forgive me if I kept working with this guy. And she went over to the Liberals. She's got guts. She went to that rally. She's got stamina. I think that if you compare her to the other ones and to Legault, the average Quebecer who has exactly that, a good moral compass, will realize which one's right and which one's wrong.
Tom Mulcair, back tomorrow morning at 7:40 a.m. on The Morning Show. Thank you, Tom.